Hello, everyone. Did you sleep well last night? Yeah. How about your breakfast? Very nice. Yeah. And I have already met some of the students here. And I'm Professor Kang of Ajou University, South Korea. And Kang is my last name, so you can call me Dr. Kang or Professor Kang. But I would prefer MG, which is the initial of my first name. That's very close to you, right? You can call me MG. Yeah. And since my childhood, I have spent almost all of my life in or around academic institutions, especially around universities, learning, teaching, doing researches. And looking back upon it, it's my great fortune that I can earn my living by teaching students, mainly because I could meet such talented young people every year because they are the change agent to make this world better than before. And you are the very one. In this sense, I'm more honored. I have more honors this morning. And if my memory is correct, here should be a 33 very much talented students from all over the region from ASEAN member states. I try to memorize all, all member states from Brunei to Vietnam, and I have met already, and I looked into this book already. Okay. Let me, because I've introduced myself, let me see you first. Ajou from Brunei. Where are you, Ajou? High five over there. Yes. Nice to meet you. Eng? Chandi. Eng Chandi, right. Nice to meet you. Okay, Chandi. Hi there. Sai. Sai. I met you before, right? Kimni? Nice to meet you. High five. Abian? From Indonesia, right. I saw you in the restaurant this morning, right. Hanif. All right, I saw you a little while ago. Fish. It's not fish, right? Fish, right? Nico, I saw you. Lilian. From Laos, Pedia, Lilian. Nice to meet you. Sunny. Good. Good looking. Ara. Arha. Hi there. From Malaysia, right? Hong Kai. Hong. From Malaysia too. Williams, from England? Nice to meet you, yeah. Teddy, where are you? Okay, from Myanmar. Not teddy bear, I'm just kidding. Nang, Nang, okay, you're there. What's your first name? Nang, Aya, Tune? AA, okay, I'll call you AA, okay? Myanmar. And Murat, okay. And Abiele, from Ibiale, from Philippines. In Spanish, it's Abiele, right? Brent, hi there. Christy, Abuhai, Erjo, good morning. And Dennis Chan from Singapore. Dennis, where are you? You hide away. Y, Yang, Yao Yang. I saw you a little while ago. Nikki from Thailand. You are there, right? Arum, okay. Hey, Raja. Well dressed up. You dressed up today, right? Suchanan. 안녕하세요. 감사합니다. From Timor, Frankie. Hi there. Marcel. Hi there too. Okay, Troop, Vietnam, right here. Hi Dan. Up there. Min Moy, right here. Viet, I saw you a little while ago. I'm very much pleased to meet all of these talented people from all over the world. I'm very much pleased. This is my bad habit, roll call, as university professors, roll calls. Okay, the topic I'm going to deliver to you this morning is about corruption, anti-corruption, and democratic ethics. It's a very heavy topic. Before I begin, let me briefly introduce you the main ideas, major parts of my lectures. I'm not sure whether I can cover all of this material within an hour. Perhaps it will need a whole semester. I guarantee, yeah. Firstly, on the first part of my lecture, I will briefly look into the reasons why we have to discuss this matter. Why it is important? Corruption and ethics to these talented young people. Why do we have to discuss this matter? We have to persuade ourselves first, right? And that's the first part of my lecture. Can you hear me? Clear enough? I don't want electronic devices, frankly speaking. On the second part, we try to define the term corruption. What is corruption and what is not? What's the major attributes, characteristics of corruption? So, scope of corruptions, attributes, and something like that. And we'll try to borrow the definition employed by TI, which is Transparency International, international NGOs. Once the term is defined, and once we persuade ourselves to discuss this matter, we'll delve into the third topic, which is the actual aspects of corruptions from comparative point of view. Which country is corrupted how much? In what aspect? How is the tendencies? Or something like that. But in order to find out the actual aspects, we need to measure it, right? Measure it first. And then, according to that criteria, we will collect some data from many resources. And finally, on the third part, also, after we have looked into the actual aspects of corruption, we will try to find out the meaning or its relationship to development, corruption and development, political and economic development. And this is my third part of my lectures. And finally, on the first part, the most difficult one, is try to find the solutions to these corruptions. I'll give you the conclusion first. There is no solution. There is no easy solution. We can just try to solve the problem. That's omnipresent all throughout history. It's like a bacteria on a human body. If your human body is weak, bacteria will invade you. But if you are strong enough, bacteria, that's nothing. Ignorable. So, and finally, we'll get to the conclusion if we have enough time. So, which one? Where's mine? Over here. This is Dr. Kang Myung-goo. This call me just MG. Okay. This is my contents. In the beginning, why do we talk about corruption and ethics? This is the first part. And second part, definitional question. On the third part, facts on corruption from international comparison, implications of facts, interim conclusions. Conclusions from relations between development and corruptions. And this is, and fifth and sixth chapter is about diagnosis and prescriptions on corruptions. First one, how to counter corruption? No easy way, but some toolkits. The practical approaches to corruptions will be provided to you later. And this sixth part, theoretical consideration, exit or voice. This is rather difficult, I guarantee. It needs a whole semester. But anyway, I will just touch upon the basic ideas of how can we counter problem of corruption from institutional point of view. How can you design institutions and rules of makings from this theoretical point of view? I'm not sure how much I can cover all of these materials within less than an hour, but I will try. Okay, let's go to the first topic. Oh, it's blank, but don't worry. Why corruption? Why do we have to talk about corruption and ethics? I'll give you just a hint, small hint. Oops. Because it was given, just a joke. Okay, and then I'll give you a second hint. Because it is important. That's tautology. That's a repetition of the question. And then let me ask you first. Why the topic of corruption and ethics is important? Ask yourself. Try to persuade yourself. Why do we have to discuss this matter in this nice hotel? Let me ask you. Why do we have to?
Because to be able to move forward, like a country, like a nation forward, you need to be uncorrupted.
Very nice. You got the point first. And then, let me ask, that's the only question? Any volunteers? I forgot your name. From Vietnam?
From Thailand.
From Thailand. Sushan?
Sushan. Yep.
Sushan told us that to make my nations go forward, it is very much important to discuss this matter. Yeah, that's one point. Good point. Another point? Any volunteer? Okay.
Because I think it is.
You're Ang.
No. I'm Christy.
Yes.
Christy. I think corruption affects our quality of living. So if we eradicate it, maybe all of us or the residents of a nation might have a higher quality of living, which is important.
Very similar question, similar answers. From another point of view, why?
From my point of view, corruption is a hindrance to implement a good governance. So in order to implement a good governance, we need to first be aware of what corruption is, what ethics is, because sometimes we are not aware of whatever action that we are doing sometimes is part of corruption.
Thank you. The three questions are very similar, closely connected from each other. The other point is, what I want is, it has something to do, very much closely connected to establishing or enhancing a good leadership. The reason why you are here, really. So, let me approach this question from two points of view. First, from macro levels, which means national development point of view. With corruption, it's hard to develop your home country. And from individual or micro levels, it is very closely connected to the development of yourself, of your leadership, good leadership, right? Around several years ago, when I taught one course, the title was Third World Development. A student from Indonesia, at the time I was a dean of a graduate school of international studies, after semester, a student from Indonesia came to my office. And he was very serious and asked me, MG, why? I have a question. What's that? My country is big enough, huge population, and huge natural resources. But we stay less developed. Let me tell me why. He was so much serious. Because your country is too hot, too humid? Because there are too many races? Because of religions? Because of exploitations from other countries? At the turn of the century, at the beginning of 20th century, world intellectuals pointed out two candidates to be a big power. The one was Japan. The other was Argentina. You know the answer. What happened? We don't have enough time to discuss, to compare these two countries enough. It needs a whole semester, really. Because I majored in Latin American politics, I know a lot about Argentina. Right? The reason we talk about corruption is that some external and environmental factors matters. That's correct in discussing development. But if that is true, that's only half answer. You have to find the answer from the other part, from internal aspects. You have to look into yourself too. What actually happened in decision-making process, in making policies, in implementing that policies? Was it implemented efficiently? Decision process making was uncorrupted and democratically collected, something like that. So, by asking ourselves, or by talking about this topic, we'll have a chance to look into the internal factors of development. This is very much important. Korea, which I belong, was really poor. In the 1960s, the GNP per capita was around $100. In the early 1970s, Korean government sent their public officers to have more learning to Philippines and to Myanmar. It's amazing. It changed a lot. What has happened? What happened during the time? I'm still asking to myself. I haven't taken airplane before I was 30. When I went to the United States, when I was 30 years old, that was my first time to take an airplane. I was a country boy at the time. So corruption is so much important. Sorry. What about leadership? Good leadership can't go in hand with corruptions. We cannot overemphasize the importance of ethically sound and public-minded good leadership too much. That's the beginning and end, and alpha and omega. Especially if the young, talented people are corrupted, the country has no future. Especially nowadays, as you can see from Fukushima nuclear disaster, that's not accident, that's a disaster, or that's a crime in my opinion. As a German sociologist, Uli Beck, told us, the major characteristics of modern society is a high-risk societies. It's very much developed, very convenient, but at the same time, the other side of development is high risk. Nuclear weapons, nuclear energies, and environmental disaster, climate problems. In this rise of high-risk societies, ethically sound, good leadership becomes more important. More and more important. You just small mistake by leaders can make a big blow. Sometimes we call it butterfly effect. Small mistakes result in big disaster sometimes. That's the reason why I emphasize ethically sound, democratic, and publicly minded, good leadership by these talented young people is so important. This is a very much complicated world, globally interconnected. Okay, so you persuade yourselves by pointing out this topic, corruption and ethics, from macro and micro point of view. This is a very much important topic to discuss. And okay, and then let's go to the first topic. What is corruption? What is corruption? Perhaps one of the way to find out the real meaning is to go around from the edge to the centers. I look into thesaurus, the dictionaries. There is synonyms, which means similar words, and antonyms, which is the opposite words, right? What's the synonyms of corruptions? It should be have some kind of negative impressions or perceptions, right? C, bribery, exploitation, extortion. T, moralization, dishonesty, jobbery, something like that. What about antonyms? Come on. Cleanness, honesty, purity, honor, decency, truthfulness. These have very positive perceptions. These have very negative perceptions. You know why I emphasize, why I touch upon these synonyms and antonyms. Because corruption is, sometimes it's about fact, but sometimes it's about perceptions. On the second part, in measuring corruption, we'll use perception index. Perception. Sometimes it's about fact, sometimes it's about perceptions. So when people think that he is honest, he can be regarded as a kind of corrupted person. So very much a negative concept, positive concept, cleanness, honest. And then what about I look into dictionary, to a major dictionary. One is by Webster Merriam-Webster, and the other Oxford. Let's go to first Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. Come on, too small. Anyway, according to Webster dictionary, corruption is dishonest or illegal. Dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people such as government officials or police officers. Dishonest, illegal behavior by powerful people. What about Oxford Dictionary? Dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power. Fraudulent, do you know what is fraudulent? Seeking money, right? Dishonest or fraudulent conduct, behavior and conduct by those in power. What's in common between those two dictionaries in defining the term corruption? Power. Power. So many people think that corruption is done by the people who has power. Power. But in this definition of corruption, one point is unclear, but implicitly there is something in it. Power by whom? Individual? Power by usually public authorities. Public authorities, right? In most cases, corruption is done by people who has power in public positions. That's a traditional view, really. And that's why there is a very famous aphorism, iron laws in political science, said by Lord Acton. Power tends to be corrupt. Power tends to be corrupt. Point. Absolute power tends to be corrupt absolutely. That's the iron law. Corruption has something to do with power. All of these 33 students, talent students, might have some chances to have power. Remember this. Power tends to be corrupt. This aphorism by Lord Acton reminds me of one the famous episode in Rome. When the general won the war, he marched through the victory gate. And one servant always follows him and whispers to his ear, memento mori, which means in Latin, remember death. Hey, General, you are victorious enough, and you are courageous enough, you are glorious enough, but be careful, you will die in the long term, in the long run. Power tends to be corrupt. Absolute power tends to be corrupt, absolutely. But this is not the final answer. There are some problems in the definitions. What kind of problems can you find? Let me ask you first. Let me approach this question from this way. Lee Gun-hee is the chairperson of Samsung Corporation in South Korea. He's a very rich person. Much, much more richer than me, I guarantee. I'm just kidding. And the president of Korea is Park Geun-hye, the daughter of a late dictator. Who's more powerful? Who has more power? Samsung or president? I guarantee Samsung. Hey, you president, come and go. But I'll stay here forever with money. And this capitalistic society's power is at the hands of people who has money, economic power. But according to this traditional definition of corruption, we just deal with public domains. What about private domains? Right? Government regulates our behaviors, but our most private life is regulated by markets. You buy something from superstores, from markets, right? Almost many parts of our lives are privatized. And what about corruption in this area? All right. So we'll employ the term corruption. Time goes too fast. I'll go faster than before. Definition by Transparency International. According to this NGO, international NGO, corruption is defined as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Abuse of entrusted power for private gain. What does it mean? Abuse is against law. Law passed by parliament, which represent the ideas and opinions of people, citizens, right? But it begs another question. And then if it's against ethics, and if it's against culture or customs, is it corruption or not? That's a big question. It needs a whole lot of time. But anyway, first, abuse has something to do with illegality, as in the case of illegal behavior over here, against law. When you violate a law for the purpose of your private gain, that's corruption. Right? This is important. Entrusted power. That's power entrusted. Entrusted by whom? According to traditional definition, entrusted by a voter through elections. But nowadays, who entrusted power to the economic giants? Consumers? Consumers? No. Stockholders. Stock market, stockholders. So, entrusted by stockholders. Or sometimes, consumer movements try to engage in deciding this process of engagement, entrustment. And private gain of what kind? Of what kind? Material and non-material value for personal use. Non-material value also refers to corruption. So, it covers government sectors, which is traditional, as well as market, which is new, and individual. So, for example, a government code of ethics, integrity pact. Nowadays, corporate social responsibility. Corporations seek not only profits, but also for social responsibility. In my case, academic code of ethics against plagiarism, making copy illegal or something like that. So, anyway, we will employ the term. We will borrow the term employed by TI. Corruption what? Abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Okay. And then, how can we measure? We will employ the CPI, Corruption Perception Index. Perception Index. As I told you before, it's also about fact as well as perceptions. CPI, since 1995, Transparency International has published the Corruption Perceptions Index annually, ranking countries by their perceived levels of corruption. Perceived levels of corruption, as determined by expert assessments. Some are bankers. They choose 13 organizations, NGOs, corporations, and also by opinion surveys of each nation. The scale is 10 points, from 0, which is highly corrupt, and to 10, which is highly clean. If the score is around 3.0, we can say that's overall corrupt. And around 7, more than 7, that's transparent by and large. If the score is 5.0, just over absolute corruption. Let's skip because small. And this is the transition of CPI score from 1995 to 2007. It's Australia, Japan. This is Japan. And Taiwan over here. South Korea, this one. And this one is Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Laos. The average score for Asia Pacific is 4.24. OECD country average is 7.86. 2018. OECD is Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, which is mostly European, Western European countries, right? So all the average is 4.4. Most clean countries, Finland, Denmark, New Zealand, around 9.4. Singapore and Sweden, 9.3. Most corrupt, Iraq, Myanmar, Somalia. According to 2013 analysis, North Korea too. But I know CPI index has serious problems. That's a perception. It can have Western bias. That's true. But anyway, it's about perceptions. And then, what about ASEAN countries? This, I look into data 2007 and 2013 last year. Cambodia, 2.0. Indonesia, like this, 2.7, 3.2. Laos, I'm sorry, Laos, DPR, Laos, 1.9. Malaysia, 5 point, around 5 point. Myanmar, around 2. Philippines, around 3. Singapore, wow. 9.3, 8.6. Thailand, 3.5. Vietnam, 2.6, 3.1. Korea, around 5. The levels of Myanmar. In case Malaysia, it overcome absolute corruption. It's becoming uncorrupted. Singapore, transparent. Others, over-corrupt. I know there can be a bias. That's a problem. There is a problem. But objectively, that's an undeniable fact, perceived by some experts. And also it reflects opinion surveys. This is the result of a Corruption Perception Index 2013. In the Americas, 66% below. You can, that's too much vague. Anyway, most of the countries, member state of ASEAN belongs to this. And Singapore is over here. That's not important. And then, our question. Corruption and economic development. What relationships? On the vertical level, it's a GDP per capita, US dollars. On a horizontal capital, that's a CPI index from 10 to 1. So, I think that many of you have already did some statistical method, SPSS or something like that. You know, something about correlations, I guess. There's so many countries. And broadly speaking, we can find it's not clear, but anyway, this way, very positively related relationship between poverty and corruption. It means that if you are corrupted, you have more chances to be underdeveloped economically, right? This is one implication. We are not, of course, there are other variables, as I told you before, external variables, environmental variables, or exploitation by powerful country or something like that. But anyway, corruption has negative correlations with development from economic point of view, right? What about corruption and press freedom? The reason I chose press freedom is that press freedom is one strong indicator that can gauge the degree of political development. Without press freedom, no democracy. That's my opinion. That's my answer. So, but in this case, I'm sorry. If you belong on this vertical level, 0 point means that free press. On the upper side, no press. And on the horizontal levels, the CPI index, from 1 to 10. Perhaps you can expect a negative correlations. If you are corrupted, less press freedom, you can expect it. But in this case, so broadly speaking, the relationship between this political freedom, press freedom and corruption is not that clear as in the case of economic development and corruption. That's I think the correlation, R-square is less than around 0.5 or less than 0.5. It means that, political question is more complicated than economic dimensions. For example, look at this case of Singapore over here. It's a very clean country according to CPI index. But press freedom, if the relationship between corruption and political development should around 1, it should be around here, right? But in this case, it's around up there. So the political aspects of development and corruption has very complicated relationship. The question is that benevolent dictatorship, that's possible or not? Can there be a good dictatorship for the development? That's a very difficult philosophical question. We are running out of time. Let's go to another one. Okay. And then, this is the third part of corruption. And then, how can we counter corruption? How can we counter corruption? How to cure it? But if we go into this topic directly, we are missing one logical part. What's that? In order to prescribe, we have to diagnose first. We have to know the cause. We have to know the reasons for corruptions. Without knowing anything about corruption, it's very hard to find prescriptions, right? But as I told you before, it will take a whole semester to find answers. So, as I told you, it's omnipresence of corruption throughout our history. We will approach this question basically from two dimensions. One, from individual ethical point of view. The other, from institutional point of view. The reason is that as a talented people, you can be morally sound. But however you arm yourself with morality or ethics, you might be a lonely island in the sea of wholly corrupted societies. In order to cure the corruption problems, we have to design societal or governmental institutions in order to eradicate them, root them out. So, I'm sorry. So it's not an all or nothing game, but it's a game of more or less. Yes. There is no easy way. So from an individual point of view, some guiding ethical principle fighting corruptions, usually they refer to three principles: the integrity at the personal level, and transparency institutional level, and accountability at the political level. Man of integrity. Right? honors, and truthfully, something like that. So there are so many integral youth camps, the pact of integrity or something like that. And transparency. They got to know how decision was made. Everybody have to know. And they can participate in the process. And and accountability about outcome of the policy. They should be accountable through elections or giving some information or something like that, accountable. And if we integrate altogether, that's a very good resemblance to the idea of good governance, which is employed by United Nations. Good governance, which is another word, synonyms, another words for development nowadays. And then what about from institutional point of view? As a kind of anti-corruption ideas for young activists like you, I've chosen some 15 toolkits, for example, keep watch. You have to follow the money. And count supplies at the school. Use citizen report cards. Use technical and technological solutions, for example, IT, computers or emails or something like that. As a young activist, you can get creative. You can use comics, cartoons. You can use theater and dramas, and board games, even sports. This is very important. Mobilize youth camps, integrity camps, zero bribes. When you're caught when you're offered some bribery, show them. Zero bribes, something like that. Protest, petitions, and make elections count. Election pledge and crowdsourcing altogether. I can give you 5 or 10 examples for each items. Again, such a nice and very important examples from Korea and America too. But we are running out of time. So this is first part of ethical dimensions, fighting corruption. And then what about institutional designs? This is very important. In designing an institution that corrects corruptions, you have to. In case economic institutions, exit options should be provided. If that organization is corrupted, you can have more chances to find another sources. We call it exit option. If the price at the same quality is high in some store, and if you're not satisfied, you can go to another store to purchase another items, right? We call it exit option based on competition. So, in order to eradicate corruption in economic sectors, you need ensuring a fair competition. But in case of public organizations, you cannot choose state. You cannot choose your family as you like. Of course, we can migrate to other countries, but that's not easy. You belong to a certain country. So, in the case, there is no place to escape. There is no place to exit. In the case, you should be provided by making a voice. You are wrong. So, you have to correct it. That's the voice option. Right. For example, ensuring protection of whistleblower or ombudsman are the point in good case. A whistleblower is a person who exposes this dishonest secret behavior of organizations at the cost of his personal safety, right? Well, what about ombudsman? Ombudsman was appointed not by a government or a parliament, but he has independence power to investigate some things, right? So ombudsman case. So, final conclusion. It's audacity verb. Problems of voice option in fighting corruption. That's very essential in democratic societies, but very costly and no personal material gains. People have less incentive to voice up, to fight against corruption, because there is no personal gains. Sometimes he's threatened, right? Threatened. So we need courage and democratic ethics for participation. You are talented and gifted young people. The other side of the talent and gifted is that you have responsibility as a leader. So, hard to win fighting corruption, but should be audacious or courageous enough to have hope. One of my most loving poem was written by Chinese novelist and thinker Lu Xun. I love this phrase so much. I thought, hope cannot be said to exist, nor can it be said not to exist. It is just like rules across the earth. For actually, the earth had no rules to begin with. But when many men, like all of you, pass one way, a road is made. Thank you. This is my end of my lectures. Thank you for kind hearing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kang.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kang. We will open this session by revisiting your visions for your future career. No? Sorry.
Sorry, Lynn, we'll have a break first,
Oh,
and then we'll have the Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all right. No worries. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kang. We will have a Q&A, very brief. We have two reactors. We have a reaction from Ara and Marcel. So,
Yeah, hello, Dr. Kang. I'm Arha from Malaysia. Let me bring some members of the floor to the recent cases of Malaysia nowadays. Recently, 20 people get detained and charged by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission because of corrupting in smuggling items. Out of 22, 12 were custom officers, and out of the 12 custom officers, 7 were higher ranking officers and senior officers, including the Director General of Port Klang Custom Stations. So despite many actions were taken by the government, and also even they are implementing the awareness campaign in promoting integrity, this corruption is still happening, especially among those who have positions. So what will your views on this? Okay.
Please employ me as your president. I will solve the problem. I'm just kidding. Yes, the smuggling in cases of corruptions. Let me ask other questions together, and then I will answer them one by one, okay?
yeah,
Okay,
can
go
we
ahead.
call on Marcel, please, for your reaction?
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Marcel.
Hi. Well, thanks for the chance that's given to me. My name is Marcel. I'm from Timor-Leste. And good morning, everyone. Well, so here I'm very happy with your slideshow. You have explained a lot of things about corruption and also the ethics. So I would love to say my opinions about corruption. So in my point of view, corruption is a serious disease that could kill the development of a country. And if I focus on my country, I didn't find the corruption, but in my country, Timor-Leste, also have a serious problem in corruption. So the measure, the part that really appear is what is that? Because that's our new country. So sometimes the people, the leader who got the position, they use they misuse their position for their own benefit. That's the problem. And then the second one is opportunism. They use the opportunity to give chance to their stakeholder, their friend, their family to get the benefit from the position itself. So I'm very sad to share it to you all because our country is a new country and we just got the independence, but the corruption is a very big issue in our country. And therefore I want to ask you if we are leader, because I think my leader is a very great leader, Sanana Guzman, and also what's that, Zera Mozorta, the president, but in some minister, they don't have enough awareness to develop our country. We have been struggled a lot to get the independence, but some ministers still don't aware, and then they misuse the position itself. So my question is, as a leader, how we can react to those problems? Because actually they have a talent, they have a skill to develop, but maybe because of the heart don't really care the choice. So as a leader, how we can tell them to do the proper way to develop. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I understand two questions. Let me answer these two questions together. Yeah, one is question in the case of Indonesia, the other from Israel. Very specific questions about smuggling. The other one is very general questions. Usually, the easiest way to fight corruption is using the method of a stick. By enforcing law regulations. If you smuggle, you will be in jail. In case of North Korea, if you smuggle, you will be executed. Serious. More dictators prefers more harsh treatment by enforcing legal regulations. But by building more jails, can you solve the problems? My answer is that defeat germs, bacteria. The best way is to make your body strong instead of swallowing pills. Just think of a cancer treatment. Cancer cells, some bad cells, grows within your body. In order to save your body, you take some operations by a chemical treatment to kill the bad cells. But in the process, sometimes you kill your body first, right? As I told you, corruption is omnipresent all throughout history. It's not a question of all or nothing. It's a question of more or less. There's corruption in Singapore too. There's corruption in Denmark too. But if you are strong enough, ethically sound, and public-minded citizens are much better than before, the chances for corruption will decrease. So that's the reason why I call the war against corruption is never-ending war. It's an endless war. You know, so that's the reason why I emphasize institutional dimensions. So instead of punishing them first, sometimes you can entice them. You can give some incentives. If you fight smuggling, okay, I'll raise your salaries. But in many cases, the state is not that rich. And if the incentive system is widely used, there is a problem too. If they are not paid, they won't work. That's the really big questions. Materialistic or a market-oriented way of combating corruption brings about another question. That's the reason why I emphasize the importance of ethics. Human being is a self-interest animal, individual. But at the same time, we are social animal. We have to live together. That's the problem of Republican ethics. That's the question of political philosophy throughout all human history, dating back from Aristotle or Plato.
Thank you, Dr.
Nowadays,
Kang.
right?
If you can wrap it up so that, yeah.
Okay. So, install voice options and let them hear your voice institutionally and try and ask parliamentmen, send them emails and letters to enact what ensures voice options, ombudsman or something like that. I think that's a better way than building up more jails, right? Another question. This is the time?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kang.
Okay, nice to talk to you, and it was my honor. Thank you.
And to honor our speaker, may I request the Director of SEAMEO SPAFA, Dr. M. Arujaya Abakon, to please present a token of appreciation to Dr. Myung-goo Kang. Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Oops. 아이고.
Up here, yes.
I didn't expect this much. How many already